Hello and welcome to the Rich by Design podcast. I am Heather Esposito. I am so glad that you are here, whether this is the first time that you are here or you've listened to every episode. I am so grateful that you are here. So, I've been doing this series about how the Safe and Sound Protocol has impacted my life. And before I begin today's episode, I want to let you know that this episode includes a personal conversation about suicide and suicidal thoughts. So please take care of yourself as you listen. Pause, skip this episode, or come back to it at another time if that feels better for you. This episode reflects my personal experience and is not a substitute for mental health care. If you are currently struggling or feel that you may be in danger, please reach out to a qualified professional or someone that you trust and seek immediate support. You deserve support and you do not have to carry these things alone. So, I wanted to make this little kind of diversion from what I had been talking about. I'm still going to talk about how SSP, the Safe and Sound Protocol, changed my life. But I wanted to kind of divert it because yesterday I read something that really hit me super, super hard. And I read that Carolyn Elliott, who's the author of Existential Kink, died. Now, you may have heard of her, may not heard of her. Either way, right? Whenever I hear of anyone passing, it's always hard. What's exponentially hard is when I hear that they took their life. And many of the accounts that I read said that she took her life. Now, I never knew her personally. I don't know the circumstances surrounding her death, and I will never pretend to. What I do know is that her book had a profound impact on me. It's one that I've recommended to friends and clients over the years. And as someone with suicidal thoughts for more than 30 years, news like this, like I mentioned, always hits me really hard because it brings me back to the question that has shaped the last 3 decades of my life, which is what is going on inside of us that makes us feel this way? For me personally, it's like, what is going on inside of me that makes me feel this way? It was never the question of like, how do I cope better? Or like, how can I just think more positively? Which, I mentioned before that I coach for Tony Robbins and I've been in personal development fields where everything's like, just change your thoughts, like just think more positively. And I always knew that's just not the case. There's so much more than that. So those weren't my questions. My questions were, why does my body, why does my mind, why does my spirit always keep ending up in these places? Why do I keep ending up with these thoughts that just are obtrusive and intrusive? And what is going on? What is making this happen? And I grew up in a conservative Christian environment where I was told often, just trust Jesus and you'll be fine. Jesus can save you. And while Jesus may save me from like eternal damnation, that's a whole other like topic I'm not going to get into as far as that whole thing, right? But it wasn't my experience that, I just trusted Jesus and everything was fine. Like I would have liked it to be. It would seem like it would be really freaking easy to be like, oh well, whatever, Jesus got it and I have no responsibility here. But that wasn't the case for me. And as I shared in previous episodes, changing my diet and lifestyle was a thing that absolutely shifted so much for me because I discovered that eating sugar was like flipping a switch. Because whenever I'd eat sugar within about 24 hours, I would spiral into incredibly dark thoughts that lasted for days. And when I finally removed sugar from my diet, my mental state changed dramatically. As long as I didn't eat sugar, the intrusive thoughts weren't there. And so that taught me something that the worlds of personal development and mental health still need to get better at tremendously. They need to get better at integrating that our bodies matter, that what we eat matters, that our hormones matter, especially for those of us moving through perimenopause and menopause. Movement matters, our physiology matters, like what we're doing with our body matters. This is not just a mindset thing. It's not just, oh, just change your mind. Like we have to treat our bodies like the absolute temples that they are for it to function properly. And most personal development just totally overlooks that. Right? But then also it's that the state of our nervous system matters far more than I think many of us have been led to believe. So before even changing my diet, I knew that there was something deeper happen. I knew that sugar wasn't creating all of the pain and that it was exposing something that was already there. And that realization set me on this lifelong search. I became obsessed with understanding the root of suffering because I wanted to know, is it possible to heal so deeply that the suffering doesn't keep returning? And that question led me through more than 3 dozen ayahuasca ceremonies into the study of energy healing, hypnotherapy, somatic work, breath work, human design, sacred money archetypes, nervous system regulation, and more modalities than I can remember to name. And eventually it led me to the Safe and Sound Protocol. So the Safe and Sound Protocol, SSP, is a nervous system protocol that was developed by Stephen Porges, who created the polyvagal theory. And this is not your, hey, you're dysregulated, here are some tools to get you back to regulation again type of protocol. SSP is an auditory therapy or audio therapy that actually rewires and retunes the nervous system baseline, and it helps expand your window of tolerance so that your capacity to move through life is exponentially greater. And so for me, every modality that I did gave me another piece of the puzzle. Every experience helped me understand myself a little bit more. But one thing about the personal development world that has always driven me a little bit nuts is that we're incredibly good at helping people change their circumstances, right? It's like, here, I'm going to help you build the business. I'm going to help you write the best-selling book. I'm going to help you, create the reels that's going to go viral so that you can grow your audience, or help you to find the relationship that you want, or make more money, become more visible. But I kept wondering, what if the deeper work isn't only changing our circumstances? What if it's healing the part of us that continues to suffer inside of our circumstances? Because I have watched people achieve everything that they thought they wanted, and they still wake up anxious. They still feel empty. They still believe that they aren't enough. They still wrestle with the same pain that they hoped that success would ease and erase. I'm thinking of people that I know who are multimillionaires that I have personally known and known their families like in a deep, very close way, who had so much trauma that was unhealed that they experienced. I'm not going to go air their dirty laundry, but let's suffice it to say the things that looked on the outside were not true of what was going on the inside. And so this thought that if I get this, then I'll feel this. When this happens, then I'll feel this. It has never been the case of anybody that I've known, ever. And yeah, of course we want to have nice things. I'm not saying to not want to have the physical plane success, right? That can definitely change your circumstances. But it cannot by itself heal the suffering that is internally happening. And most people chase those things thinking that it's going to fix what's happening internally. And that is why the work that I do today isn't about money. I say I help women heal their relationship with money, but it's not. And it's not about human design or even the nervous system, right? Those are tools. The deeper mission has always been the same. I thought I turned my ringer off. Let me do that. But the deeper mission has always been the same. It is to help people understand why they hurt so that they don't have to spend the rest of their lives simply managing the pain. Because that's what I felt like I was doing so much of. It was managing the pain, but nothing was getting really underneath that. I would say the plant medicine ceremonies definitely helped to pull out parts of it for sure. There were lots of healings that were done through that, and I would never say anything negative about those experiences because they really helped me to heal many things, but there was still this something that was underlying, right? And so I said, I really want to help people. Myself, I wanted to help first, and now I want to help people understand why they hurt, right? So they don't have to spend the rest of their lives managing that pain. And so when I found SSP, I honestly did not think it would do much for me. I wanted to experience it because I know that there is no single modality that works for everybody. And I was also curious whether it might help me experience this deeper level of peace as I moved through this crazy thing that we call being human. And I love it when people are like, oh, I have this tool, I think it can help. And the person who introduced me to it, she was like, Heather, She's like, I've done all the tools that you've done. She's like, for years I've been doing the same kind of work that you've been doing. She's like, and this is something that has shifted more in me than any other thing has shifted. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to look into it. And I didn't even realize the results that would come, right? And what I realized what helped me to realize that I'd never really considered is that my body had learned to expect danger even when there wasn't any. And that helped me make sense of how things could be going well in my life, but eating sugar could send me into such a dark place. Okay? So my nervous system was already so close to its capacity, and sugar appeared to push it beyond what it could hold. And that led me to another question that was, if my body could learn to expect danger, could it also learn to learn something different? Could my nervous system develop a greater capacity to hold the big feelings of life without immediately them turning into this catastrophizing, like life needs to end right now? And because that, for me, that is what happened. Is anytime I had sugar, it was just like, well, life is just not worth living. And as of this recording right now, 211 days of this year have passed, and I have not had one suicidal thought. Not one. Even after eating sugar, and trust me, I've said this before, but I have tested it. I've eaten more sugar than I should this year, and I always say, like, sugar just really doesn't have any place in our diets. We don't need it. It is so horrible for us in so many ways. And I know I've been testing it more than I should, and not having those thoughts has been enormous for me. And those thoughts didn't disappear because I became more successful or I got everything that I wanted in life, because that has not happened. Okay? And they didn't disappear because I finally found the perfect mindset. And they didn't disappear because I forced myself to be positive. I truly believe that SSP, the Safe and Sound Protocol, played a significant role in returning my nervous system's baseline and expanding my window of tolerance, like giving me this greater capacity to move through life without being pulled so quickly into those dark places. And it has been incredible. And honestly, it has been really fun to experience life this way when for 30 plus years prior, it was not how I was experiencing life. So I want to interject here, and this may seem like a strange place for me to bring up human design, but stay with me for a minute. So one of the things that I love the most about human design is that it gives us language for things that we've experienced our entire lives, but could never quite explain. And one of the most significant parts of a human design chart is called the conscious sun. My coach calls it your brilliance, which feels way more tangible, because what the heck does conscious sun mean? But right, if you think about brilliance, your brilliance, it's like, what are you meant to shine into the world? So I think of it as one of the central energies that you are here to radiate into the world. And it's a major theme of your life's work and a gift that people naturally experience through you. So my conscious sun is gate 19. And most human design books describe gate 19 as a sensitivity to other people's needs. And that is absolutely true. And I have been diving into this so much in the past couple of weeks. It's one of the lessons that we covered this month in my Design to Rise group program, and that just reinvigorated me diving into it. And some things in my life happened that made me really start to ponder a bit more. And I really started to see this as something even deeper than the sensitivity to other people's needs. Or I don't know if it's deeper, but just a different lens through that. Because that gift that I have at gate 19, like, it's not about just noticing when somebody needs help. It's that, for me at least, that I can almost feel the life inside of them that isn't being lived. And so when I meet someone who is exhausted, and I'm not talking like just exhausted because they got a bad night's sleep, but I'm talking about, like, it is not just their state for that day, it is the trait of their personality, right? That they're exhausted, that they're disconnected, that they're overweight, that they're chronically anxious, that they're stuck or simply going through the motions, right? Like, my body, it literally feels this pang inside of it. And I'm not thinking like, oh, they should be different or something's wrong with them. I'm thinking there is so much life inside of you, and I wish that you could feel it. And it physically pains me when I see people like that, because I just have this deep desire knowing that there's so much more that they can experience. And I think because I felt that so much in my life, and I was like, there's so much more that I can experience, but there was something blocking me. And that was that deep like passion that I had to discover that for myself. And again, like, that's just part of the gift that I'm here to bring into the world. But like this deep desire, when I see people so disconnected from themselves, like it just hurts me physically. And I think, that's part of why I do this work. Like it is part of just what I'm meant to bring into the world. And so, where it seems like, I help people maybe with their nervous systems or human design or their money personalities or understanding their money archetypes, like I do all of those things. But again, as I already mentioned, those are tools. What I really care about is helping people come alive, is helping them reconnect with themselves, helping them feel safe enough to laugh again, to dream again, to trust themselves again, to build a life that genuinely feels like theirs. Because I don't believe that most people are broken, that most people are lazy, that something is wrong with them. I think that most people have been surviving for so long that they've forgotten what it feels like to be fully alive. And as I mentioned, like I felt like that for so much of my life. And if there's one thing that I've learned about myself, it's that my heart cannot help but notice when somebody else is living that way. And a lesson that I've really been learning is that it's not my responsibility to help everybody, to quote unquote save everybody, right? I can't do that. I can't I can't help anybody actually. Like my job is really to help them, to give them tools if they want it, right? But and the old me used to think that was my responsibility to like quote unquote fix everybody, and I realized that that is not my responsibility, right? But there's a part in me that really genuinely believes that every person deserves the chance to become more fully themselves and alive. And that's probably why I believe so deeply in the nervous system work, because when your body begins to feel safer, your personality doesn't just change, your gift don't change. You don't become somebody entirely new. You simply become more available to the person that you have always been. And to me, that is healing. Like that is what is coming alive really means. So when I learned of Carolyn Ellion's death, I found myself thinking about how much pain people can like carry quietly without sharing with anybody. And how much when people get visible, like sometimes it feels even harder to share that pain because then people have an expectation, or you think that people have an expectation of you, so then you feel like you can't share it. And so then it becomes pain. Well, pain is never something that can be solved by intelligence. It can't be transformed by, just putting your creativity out in the world, right? It's something that success and recognition, cannot like shift and change, right? This pain is this deepness, right? That a lot of like, and some of us will never know what was going on for that person. And as I mentioned at the beginning, I don't know what was going on for her. Maybe she had been exposed to black mold. I don't know. Maybe she had parasites. I don't know. Maybe her hormones were so out of whack. I don't know. And I do know that her death brought me back to the question that has guided so much of my life. How do we heal what created suffering in the first place? That's why I keep doing this work. I believe that people deserve more than instructions for coping with their pain. They deserve the opportunity to understand what is happening inside of them, to become curious rather than ashamed, to receive meaningful support, and where possible, to shift the patterns underneath the suffering and to rewrite and rewire and retune the nervous system so that the frequencies that have been keeping them stuck are no longer there. That is my hope for everybody. Not simply that we create these bigger lives with all of this, physical abundance and success, right? But that we become free enough to truly live the lives that we want to create. I have spent, 30, as I mentioned, 30 some years searching for relief. And the more I keep talking about this, the more I realize that my mission is to help people find their own pathways to healing, to help them build the nervous system capacity to move through the enormous feelings that life brings, because life is going to life. And we have to be able to ride the highs and ride the lows without losing access to ourselves and losing access to our hope or the possibility that something can change. Because I believe that there is so much more life inside of so many people that they can currently feel, and I want them to have the chance to feel it. And I will say, I don't know which of like all the tools that I mentioned, right, that I did, like if I hadn't done those, would SSP have had shifted those thoughts for me? I don't know. Right? They're all just ingredients that I threw in to like bake the cake, and SSP seemingly was the one that made things have the biggest shifts for me. But would that have looked different if I hadn't done all the other work? Possibly, right? I don't know, right? But I do know that since I did that, like I have not had one single thought of like ending my life, which again is really, really huge for me. And for the people who know me, they know that this is something I've been talking about for years, and I share this because it is such a taboo topic that so many people don't talk about. And whenever I share it, I always have people say to me, Heather, I have those thoughts too. I just would never share that with anybody. And that's why I want to share it, is because shame can only live in silence. And there's a lot of shame around having those thoughts. And I just don't want to live in that. Like it's exhausting to live in shame, and I don't want to perpetuate, right, that idea that like, oh, I'm the only one thinking this. And I know some people who've had absolutely crappy lives and they're like, I've never once had that thought. Going back to human design, I think there's certain things within our design that lead some of us more towards a melancholy, temperament. But it can be there and doesn't mean that it has to run your life. Like I mentioned, I feel like I have a big calendar over to my left that I'm looking at, and I look at it, I'm like, oh my gosh, every single one of those days that has been crossed out, all of those, like I have not had the one thought. And that is so huge for me. Again, I share because I want you to know that I'm experiencing that, and maybe it's possible for you as well if you've been thinking about that. So if there's one thing that I hope that you take away from today's episode, it is this. You were never meant to spend your life simply surviving. You were meant to feel alive, to wake up excited about your life, to have the capacity to love deeply, to create freely, to receive fully, and to trust yourself again. And that is why I created Rich by Design, because to me, being rich has very little to do with the number in your bank account. It is about becoming regulated so that your body finally feels safe. It's about becoming integrated so that you stop fighting yourself and start understanding how you're uniquely designed. And through that, developing the capacity to hold more joy, more love, more money, more visibility, more peace, and more of the life that you've always known was possible. Because when survival ends, life begins. So if today's conversation resonated with you and somewhere inside of you thought, I don't want to spend the rest of my life just surviving, I'd love to invite you to start with something I just created in this past week, and I'm calling it the Safe to Receive. It is a nervous system assessment to discover why success still feels hard. Because here's what I've learned. Most people don't need another strategy. They don't need more discipline. They don't need to try harder. Often they simply need a nervous system that's been protecting them for so long that success, joy, visibility, or even rest doesn't feel completely safe yet. So this free assessment will help you begin understanding whether your nervous system may be getting in the way of the very life that you're trying to create and what you can do about it. So I will drop the link. You'll find the link in the show notes if you're listening to this on the podcast. If you're looking at this on Substack, the link will be there. So just look, the link will be somewhere, right? Please remember that when survival ends, you finally have the capacity to live. Right? And as I said, it's not because you become somebody different, but because your body finally felt safe enough to become more fully yourself. So until next time, here's to becoming rich by design, regulated, integrated with the capacity to hold more, because the life you're longing for is not about becoming somebody new. It's about creating enough safety to be who you've been, to become, I should say, who you've been all along. So I will see you on the next episode.